Hello student, this is the continuation part of your chapter number 3. In our previous videos, we have already learned some introduction about the Delhi Sultans. Now come to this topic, from garrison town to empire, the expansion of the Delhi Sultans. Garrison town oina lairambadagi kamdauna empire olakhibano haibadi Delhi Sultan mayamgi makoigi expansion mayamduni hojik masigi topic sida koina discussion torakadoise. First of all, look at this map. Sigi map sida ulisi Delhi gi Sultan Samsuddin Iltutmish haiba miyoi sina mahangna capture toramba aduguma major city mayamni ko. Koina masigi explanation howdringaida. First of all, look here, what is hinterland and garrison town. Hinterland habasi kaino haiba matamda the land adjacent to a city or port that supply it with goods and services. City natraga port ka naknana leiba adugumba akoigi jaga karani duga karamba jagano haiba matamda asaigi goods and services marang kaina phangba koigi benefit yamna koigi opportunities yamna leiba kudong chaba yamna phangadaba adugumba jaga karani hinterland hedana haise ko. The next garrison town, a fortified settlement with soldier mayamna kuishal laga security toraga support toraga lairaba adugumba town dubuni garrison town hedana haise. Now look here. In the early 13th century, the control of the Delhi Sultans rarely went beyond heavily fortified towns occupied by the garrisons. 13th century gi haugalakpa matam swaida ngasai Delhi Sultans mayamjing makoina control toraga makoina capture toraga makoina monopoly power toraga leiba adugumba jaga jingse ngasai gi makoina occupy toraga leiba garrison town dugi wang malan ba haibasi makoi ngamamde haibani ko. The Sultans seldom controlled the hinterland of the cities and were therefore dependent upon trade, tribute or plunder for supplies. Aduna makoina ngasai gi hinterland oiriba jaga mayam jingse makoina yam tangna control taurameba aduga hojiki hairiba jaga mayam jingse makoina capture tauba control taubase yam tangna taubanina hojiki hairiba adugumba sultan mayam jingna makoi jingsina karida depend tauge haba matamda trade adudagi di ngasai gi tribute or plunder habdi loot tauba ko habdi sigumba supply mayam tarakpa mayam jingsidagi makoina loot taubagi loot taunanaba adudagi di ngasai gi makoina trade kuma tauba sidai sida makoi depend tauraga lei heba maramdi makoina hojiki opportunities yamna leiraba aduguma hinterland mayam ji makoina control tawbagi changje yamna watlambanina makoise trade tribute or plunder sida depend tauraga leirami haibaduni ko. Then come to this next paragraph. Controlling garrison town in distant Bengal and Sindh from Delhi were extremely difficult. Ngasai Bengal amadi Sindh masisibu Delhi dagi makoina control taurakpa haibase lamje aduki matik lapkibanina yamna warammeba aduna makoida problem yamna thome haibani ko maramdi kaigino haiba matamda Bengal amadi Sindh haibase Delhi dagi yamna lapanina aduna sigumba garrison town mayam jingse Delhi dagi control taunanawa honarakpada aduki matik problem yama difficulty face mayam ama makoina tawe haibani ko. Not only that, rebellion, war, even bad weather could snap fragile communication routes. Lalhokba, adudagi di lan, adudagi di weather fattaba siguma mayam jingsina makoi communication route mayam jingsida sida apanba mayam ama pirei haibani ko. And Delhi's authorities was also challenged by Mongol invasions from Afghanistan and by governors who rebelled at any sign of the Sultan's weakness. Delhi da leiriba aduguma sultan kangbu mayam jingse Mongol invasions ngasai Afghanistan asomdagi lakpa aduguma Mongol kangbu mayam jingsina aduki mating makoida challenge tore habani ko. And not only Mongol, the governors ngasai governor oina leiriba mayam jingsina ju sultan gi weakness hek urakpa matamda makoina rebel taunaba lal hauraknabagi ready da makoina loinamak leiba aduna sultan mayam jingse they face a lot of challenges. The sultans barely survived these challenges. Its consolidations occurred during the reign of Ghiyasuddin Balban and further expansion under Alauddin Khalji and Muhammad Tughlaq. Aduna sultan mayam jingsina makoida ngasai gi thengnariba challenge mayam jingse makoina yam wana survive taweba aduga ngasai gi Delhi sultan mayam jingsina makoi gi yamna success oirakpa makoi gi stronger oirakpa sigumagi makoida ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯄꯥꯋꯔꯐꯨꯜ ꯑꯣꯏꯕ ꯃꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯁ꯭ꯇꯦꯖꯁꯦ ꯀꯔꯝꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯀꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯖꯤꯌꯥꯁꯨꯗꯤꯟ ꯕꯜꯋꯥꯟ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯕ ꯅꯨꯄꯥꯁꯦ ꯃꯍꯥꯛꯀꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯗꯒꯤꯗꯤ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯁ꯭ꯇ꯭ꯔꯣꯡꯒꯔ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯄ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕꯒꯤ ꯔꯨꯂꯔꯁ ꯑꯃ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯑꯦꯀꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯃꯍꯥꯛꯀꯤ ꯃꯈꯥ ꯇꯥꯔꯛꯄꯗ ꯑꯂꯥꯎꯗꯤꯟ ꯈꯜꯖꯤ ꯑꯦꯟ ꯃꯨꯍꯝꯃꯗ ꯇꯨꯒꯂꯨꯛ ꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯃꯇꯦꯛꯁꯤꯃ ꯏꯝꯄꯣꯔꯇꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯏꯀꯣ ꯀꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯗꯦꯜꯂꯤ ꯁꯨꯜꯇꯥꯟ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯄꯥꯋꯔꯐꯨꯜ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯄ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯁ꯭ꯇ꯭ꯔꯣꯡꯒꯔ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯄꯁꯦ ꯀꯅꯥꯒꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯗꯒꯤ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯀꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯅ ꯍꯪꯕ ꯌꯥꯏ ꯀꯅꯥꯒꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯖꯤꯌꯥꯁꯨꯗꯤꯟ ꯕꯜꯋꯥꯟ ꯑꯦꯟ ꯑꯥꯐꯇꯔ ꯗꯦꯠ ꯑꯂꯥꯎꯗꯤꯟ ꯈꯜꯖꯤ ꯑꯦꯟ ꯃꯨꯍꯝꯃꯗ ꯇꯨꯒꯂꯨꯛ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯗꯒꯤꯗꯤ ꯗꯦꯜꯂꯤ ꯁꯨꯜꯇꯥꯟ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯁ꯭ꯇ꯭ꯔꯣꯡꯒꯔ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯄ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯄꯥꯋꯔ ꯄꯥꯏꯕꯒꯤ ꯆꯥꯡ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯕ ꯖꯒꯥ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯗ ꯃꯤꯂꯤꯇꯔꯤ ꯑꯦꯛꯁꯄꯥꯟꯁꯟ ꯆꯠꯂꯛꯄ ꯉꯝꯃꯛꯄꯒꯤ ꯀꯦꯄꯦꯕꯤꯂꯤꯇꯤꯗꯣ ꯂꯩꯔꯛꯑꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯤ ꯃꯈꯣꯏ ꯑꯍꯨꯝꯒꯤ ꯔꯨꯜ ꯃꯇꯝꯁꯤꯗ then next ꯁꯤꯗꯩꯁꯤꯗ ꯏꯟꯇꯔꯅꯦꯜ ꯐ꯭ꯔꯣꯟꯇꯤꯌꯔ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯑꯃꯒ ꯑꯦꯛꯁꯇꯔꯅꯦꯜ ꯐ꯭ꯔꯣꯟꯇꯤꯌꯔ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯑꯃꯒ ꯂꯥꯛꯀꯅꯤꯀꯣ ꯏꯟꯇꯔꯅꯦꯜ ꯐ꯭ꯔꯣꯟꯇꯤꯌꯔ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅ ꯀꯔꯤꯅꯣ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯀꯟꯇ꯭ꯔꯣꯜ ꯇꯧꯔꯒ ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯕ ꯒꯦꯔꯤꯁꯟ ꯇꯥꯎꯟ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯖꯒꯥꯁꯤꯡꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯑꯀꯣꯏꯕꯗ ꯅꯛꯅꯅ ꯂꯩꯕ ꯖꯒꯥ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯗꯨꯕꯨꯅꯤ ꯏꯟꯇꯔꯅꯦꯜ ꯐ꯭ꯔꯣꯟꯇꯤꯌꯔ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯁꯤꯅ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯦꯛꯁꯇꯔꯅꯦꯜ ꯐ꯭ꯔꯣꯟꯇꯤꯌꯔ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯤꯅ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯒꯦꯔꯤꯁꯟ ꯇꯥꯎꯟꯅ ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯕ ꯖꯒꯥ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯒꯤ ꯑꯔꯥꯞꯄ ꯖꯒꯥ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯑꯃ ꯑꯗꯨꯗ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯃꯤꯂꯤꯇꯔꯤ ꯀꯦꯝꯄꯦꯟ ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯃꯤꯂꯤꯇꯔꯤ ꯀꯦꯝꯄꯦꯟ ꯆꯠꯊꯔꯛꯀꯗꯣꯏꯅꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯦꯛꯁꯇꯔꯅꯦल ꯐ꯭ꯔꯣꯟꯇꯤꯌꯔ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯑꯃꯒ ꯏꯟꯇꯔꯅꯦꯜ ꯐ꯭ꯔꯣꯟꯇꯤꯌꯔ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯑꯃꯒ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯂꯥꯛꯑꯅꯤꯀꯣ ꯁꯤꯗ first look at this internal frontier the first set of campaign along the internal frontier of the sultanate aim at consolidating the hinterlands of the garrison town aduna ihan hanba makoigi internal frontier da makoina military campaign chatharakpa matamsida makoina aim tawrisi kaino haiba matamda garrison town mayam jingsi manakta leiriba aduga hinterland mayam jingse masigi jingsibu makoina control tawba haibasineba makoina aim ihan hanba aim siko and during this first campaign forests were cleared in the Ganga Yamuna Drought and hunter-gatherers and pastoralists expelled from their habitat. Tuna makoy ihan hanba masigi military campaign sida kari torongge haba matamda forest kadai gi jaga agi koi Ganga Yamuna Drought siguma jaga da leiba forest mayam ji makoina totally clear torameba. Aduga ngasai gi jaga du da settle toroga leiriba adugumba hunter-gatherers pastoralists mayam jingse makoy gi habitat gi makoina expel torami habani ko. Then next, come to your next page. These land were given to peasants and agriculture was encouraged. Hujiki hariba lamayam ni makoina patient da pithome aduga agriculture tawnanaba encourage torame habani ko. Then new fortresses, garrison towns and towns were established to protect trade routes and to promote regional trade. Hujiki hariba jaga mayam da makoina fortresses adudagi di garrison town adudagi di town kaya marum ama makoina sarameba. Karigidamakta makoigi trade route mayam jingsida protect tawnanaba. Then their second military expansion along the external frontiers of the Sultanate happened. Ko external frontier da makoi ani shuba military expansion horakre ko. Then these military expansions into southern India started during the reign of Alauddin Khilji and culminated with Muhammad Tughlaq. Jiki hariba adugi external frontier military expedition chatpasina karamba side ta chalake haiba matamda southern India da chale ko aduga kanagi matamdagi hore masigi external frontier military expansions chalakpasi Alauddin Khilji aduga mahaki makha tarakpadana Muhammad Tughlaq Alauddin Khilji ki matamdagi hore aduga yamna success oigibasina Muhammad Tughlaq ki matam sibokta success oire bangsai makoigi external frontier military expansion chalakpase ko and in their campaign Sultanate armies captured elephant horses and slaves and carried away precious metals jiki makoigi expansion lakpa matam sida military campaign chatharakpa matam sida Sultanate armies mayam jingsina elephant mayam ama sagol adudagi di slaves mayam ama makoina farami and precious metal kaya marum ama makoina purami habani ko and look here yes by the end after somewhat humble beginnings the armies of the Delhi Sultanate had marched across a large part of the subcontinent Muhammad Tughlaq ki matam loigraba bawba ngasai 150 years after somewhat humble beginning Muhammad Tughlaq ki matam se loisangragasu chahi 150 years siboki matung sibokda hujiki hariba Delhi Sultanate kangbu mayam jingche makoigi armies mayam jingchina jaga kaya subcontinent sigi jaga kaya ama makoina capture tawrami habani ko makoina makoigi rival armies oina leiba kaya marum ama makoina maithiba pirami aduga makoigi city kaya ama makoina seize tawsalame Not only that, the Sultanate collect taxes from the peasantries and dispense justice in its realms. Hujiki hariba makoina control oriba jaga mayam jingsidagi makoina tax khongolami makoigi peasant mayam jingdudagi aduga mayam jingdagi mathakta justice makoina fazana fully exercise torami habani ko adubu. But how complete and effective was his controls over such a vast territory? asuk chawgraba territory sida makoina control tawe habase kyam effective oirino kyamu yamna control tawba ngamamge habaduni sidai sida hangaise ko aduna ngasai gi Muhammad Tughlaq ki mahaki matam loigraba fauda 150 years sibo makoina control adum tawrame habani ko hojiki subcontinent sida adubu makoina control tawrami se kyamu yamna kadai fauba kyam koina control tawba ngamge habaduni hojik akoina makha tabada lakadoise. aduna sige map number 3 sida yengo sidai sida uriba arrow mark piriba jingse Alauddin Khilji na South India da mahaki military campaign chalakiba adugi ngasai gi map tuni ko aduna Delhi dagi makoina South India ta na military campaign chalakiba adugi direction mayam jing tuni ko aduna sige map sisu khangjanba fai. Then next come to your before coming to your next topic, first look here. This figure 2 is, before explaining this figure, first look here, the masjid. A mosque is called a masjid in Arabic. Mosque Arabic ta masjid adana kawi ko. Literally a place where a Muslim prostrates in reverence to Allah. Saigi Muslim mayam jingna makoyi Allah masibu sonjaba adugumba sonbam haiba tare ko adugumba jaga amani. In a congregational mosque, Muslim read their prayers, namaz together. Jikisigumba congregational mosque sida ngasagi Muslim mayam jingchina makoigi namaz haiba makoigi laishon se sholame habani ko. Congregational mosque sibu masjid e jami or jama masjid haidana hai ko. Then members of the congregation choose the most respected learned male as their leader imam for the rituals of the prayer. Ngasagi congregation sida lairiba adugumba members mayam jingsina congregational mosque sida lairiba adugumba member mayam jingsina makoigi khwaidigi respected oiraba adudagidi yamna khang hairaba adugumba nupa jingsibu makoigi leader kari haidana kawe makoina imam hairiba ko sigi miyoije makoina khangani karigi damakta khangadoino haiba matamda prayer dugi ritual practice tawnanaba prayer dugi ritual pangthoknanaba gidamakta adugumba miyoije makoina khalli haibani ko. He also delivers the sermon khutbah during the Friday prayer. Makoigi Friday prayer tarakpu matamda hujiki hariba miyoisina khutbah harise masi mahakna deliver tawe haibani ko. And during prayer Muslims stand facing Mecca. In India this is to the west. This is called the Qibla. Makoina lai khoramba matamda Muslim mayam jingsina Mecca romda makoina loinamak mamai ongani ko. India dadi Mecca se western side lomda laiba aduna sigi sibu Qibla haidana kawi ko. And look here, figure 2 sibu kaino Kuwait al-Islam mosque and minaret built during the last decade of the 12th century. 12th century gi loisalakpada sakiba adugumba mosque amadi minaret ni maming kari koge Kuwait al-Islam. aduga hairiba masigi hujiki lairiba masigi mosque amadi minaret jingse kanana saramge haba matamda Nasaigi Kutubuddin Aibak and Iltutmish masigi matamda sarambani ko adubu masije kanana amuk enlarge toktuomge haba matamda Iltutmish amadi Alauddin Khilji makoina amuk enlarge toktuome habani ko aduga sigi sibu makoigi kadaida thengdarake haba matamda Chronicles Delhi Ikhwana hairiba masigi Chronicles se sidai sida thengdarai habani ko si important oi sima khangjanba fai. Kana na saramba Kutubuddin Aibak and Iltutmish aduga kana na enlarge tawrame haba Iltutmish and Alauddin Khilji masi sibu kadaida describe tawramge haba matamda Chronicles Delhi Ikhwana hairiba mamingna kari kauba Kuwait al-Islam. The next Figure number 3. Begumpuri mosques built in the reign of Muhammad Tughlaq. Sisu kangjanba fai ko. Kamaina question lakadage haiba matamda Begumpuri mosque se kanana saramge haidana. Dudi kaidana khumba yare Muhammad Tughlaq na. Masibu kadaida laiba Jahanpana, the century of the world. Sima kangjanba fare ko. Then next, come to your next page. Som the data yamna important oidre figure number 4 sida yengo. Figure number 4 si kadino haiba matamda Mod ki Masjid built in the reign of Sikandar Lodi. Sisu kangjanba fai Mod ki Masjid. Kanana saramba Sikandar Lodi. Then next, figure number 5, Mosque of Jamali Kamali built in late 1520. Then next, come to your next topic. A closer look at administration and consolidation under the Khiljis and Tughlaq. Saigi laigriba empire ama semakpa haibasida saigi makoi lairiba army mayamjing adu khatangda depend to haibasi yade ko haibadi kaino ngasai army mayamjing du khatangda yamna kallaga hekta yade ba kari important oi ke haba matamda administration haibase masisu yamna important oi habani ko aduna ngasai lairiba adugumba Delhi Sultan mayam gida lairiba makoi rulers Khiljis amadi Tughlaq kangbu makoi jingi matamda lairammiba adugumba administration je kamaina tawramge haibaduni hojiga koina sida discuss tawadori se. So student, we have to listen carefully. This is important part of this chapter. The consolidations of a kingdom as vast as the Delhi Sultanate needed reliable governors and administration. Duna makoigi kingdom sina yamna stronger ama oirake aduga makoigi empire ama semnanaba adudagidi makoina military campaign mayam ama chalakpa matamda haibadi ngasai Delhi Sultanate mayam sina makoigi empire ama semnanaba honarakpada kari mathau tarake haibaduni aduda kari mathau tage haiba matamda reliable governors and administrators. Si yamna important way. Haibadi any empire ama semnanaba honabada not only their armies to khatangda is strong enough oiba haibasina it's not enough. The administration haibasisu yamna important oiba aduna Delhi Sultanate matamda Delhi Sultan mayam jingsida makoigi kingdom jingsibu yamna makoigi stronger oinanaba makoina honarakpa matamda reliable governors and administrator haibase yamna important oiba. Then, rather than appointing aristocrats and landed chieftains as governor, the early Delhi Sultans, especially Iltutmish, favored their special slaves purchased for military service called Bandagan in Persian. Aristocrats and landed chieftain mayam jingsibu governor oina appoint tawbagi mahutta koigi Delhi Sultan koigi especially Iltutmish hairiba masigi rulers ina ngasai aristocrats adudagi landed chieftain mayam jingsibu governor oina appoint tawbagi mahutta makoina kari tawramge haiba matamda slaves special slaves mayam jingsibu makoina lairamme koigi military service tawnanabagi damakta madubu Persian da kari kauge Bandagan harise ko. They were carefully trained to man some of the most important political offices in the kingdom. Objiki makoina lairiba adugumba slaves mayam jingsibu makoina carefully train tawrami aduga makoigi kingdom gida lairiba adugumba political office mayam jingse asidai sida makoina thabak tawhalame habani ko. Especially they were totally dependent upon their master. The Sultan could trust and rely upon them. Ujiki makoina lairiba adugumba slave mayam jingsibu makoigi master sida totally dependent oina makoina oihalleba. And the Sultan could trust and rely upon them. Sai Sultan sida makoida thajanaba ujiki hairiba slave mayam jingsida makoina thajaba thamnanabagi damakta adugumba slave mayam jingsibu makoina Sultan jingsida totally dependent oihallaga thamme habani ko. Habadi ngasai aristocrats adugidi landed chieftain mayam jingdudi makoidi already well-being ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯒ ꯂꯩꯔꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯃꯤꯑꯣꯏ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯗꯤ ꯏꯟꯗꯤꯄꯦꯟꯗꯦꯟ ꯉꯥꯛꯇꯅꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯏꯟꯗꯤꯄꯦꯟꯗꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯏꯕꯅꯤꯅ ꯁꯝꯇꯥꯏꯝꯁ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯔꯨꯂꯔꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯑꯦꯒꯦꯟꯁꯇ ꯂꯥꯛꯄꯒꯤ ꯆꯥꯟꯁꯁꯦ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯋꯥꯡꯉꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯏꯟꯗꯤꯄꯦꯟꯗꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯕ ꯑꯦꯔꯤꯁꯇꯣꯀ꯭ꯔꯦꯠꯁ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯒꯤꯗꯤ ꯂꯦꯟꯗꯦꯗ ꯆꯤꯐꯇꯦꯟ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯕꯨ ꯒꯕꯔꯅꯔ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯦꯄꯣꯏꯟ ꯇꯧꯕꯒꯤ ꯃꯍꯨꯠꯇ ꯏꯟꯗꯤꯄꯦꯟꯗꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯏꯒꯗꯧꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯁ꯭ꯂꯦꯞꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯕꯨ ꯋꯦꯜ ꯇ꯭ꯔꯦꯟ ꯇꯧꯔꯀꯥꯟꯗ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯁꯨꯜꯇꯥꯟꯒꯤ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯣꯐꯤꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯗ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯦꯄꯣꯏꯟ ꯇꯧꯕꯅꯦꯕ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯤ ꯀꯩꯒꯤꯅꯣ ꯏꯟꯗꯤꯄꯦꯟꯗꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯂꯩꯔꯒꯗꯤ ꯁꯨꯜꯇꯥꯟꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯑꯦꯒꯦꯟꯁꯇ ꯂꯥꯛꯄꯒꯤ ꯆꯥꯟꯁ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯋꯥꯡꯕꯅꯤꯅ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯗꯤꯄꯦꯟꯗꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯁ꯭ꯂꯦꯞ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯕꯨ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯦꯄꯣꯏꯟ ꯇꯧꯕꯅꯦꯕ ꯀꯅꯥꯅ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯗꯦꯜꯂꯤ ꯁꯨꯜꯇꯥꯟꯁ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯀꯅꯥꯒꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯗꯒꯤ ꯍꯧꯔꯦ ꯃꯁꯤꯕꯨ ꯑꯥꯔꯂꯤ ꯁꯨꯜꯇꯥꯟ ꯏꯜꯇꯨꯠꯃꯤꯁ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯕ ꯃꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯔꯨꯂꯔꯁꯦ ꯃꯍꯥꯛꯀꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯗꯒꯤ ꯍꯧꯔꯛꯈ꯭ꯔꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯤꯀꯣ then come to your next page. Slaves rather than sons. Sita quote ama leireko. Slaves rather than sons. Sultans were advised a slave whom one has brought up and promoted must be looked after, for it needs a whole lifetime and good luck to find a worthy and experienced slave. Wise men have said that a worthy and experienced slave is better than a son. Slave amabu poraaga mahaksibu fazana brought up tawbiragadi slave sina ngasai ruler sida loyal fazana oigani haidana ngasai gi makoi gi sultan gi koi wise men kangbu mayamna hainarameba aduna ngasai gi sultan gi ruler mayam jingsina makoi gi macha dagi hena slave sina hena makoina thajaba thamba haidana dumaina hairami ko sina kari gi kamaina hairino haiba matamda slave haibasibu slave haidana leiriba kangbu haibase makoidi thabak suna bagidamakta thamba adugumba group neba makoidi adubu dumaina thabak suna naba porakpa miyoi jingdubu makoina fazana brought up tobiraga yamna well care oina fazana mabu ngasai ningthausi makhada fazana yamna loyal oina mabu fazana treatment tobidana train tobidana yamna fazana sembiragadi thabak sunanaba porakpa midubu thabak suhandabida adugumba yamna high class oiba official class ama mongonda piragadi hujiki hairiba ruler sibu mahakna yamna loyal oina follow tawgani ruler sibu mahaki lord amoina follow tawgani haidana sultan mayamgi makoigi delhi sultanate ki matamda makoigi thajanabi ama lairameba aduna sandagi slave sina hena fai haidana sumaina sultan kangbugi thajanabi ama lairami ko adunani makoina adugumba independent oina lairiba adugumba aristocrats adudagi landed chieftain mayam jingsibu governor oina appoint tawbagi mahutta adugumba slave oina makoina purchase tawramise kana na ngasai gi sultan gi koigi delhi sultanate matamgi sultan rulers mayam jingsina slave oina hire tawramise gi maramse sinane habani ko The next client si hana yengasi ko. Who are those clients? Someone who is under the protections of another, dependent or hanger on. Client habadi karino haba matamda kanaguma mi magi protection yaudana hingba ngamdaba. Dependent oiba. Independent oiba kangbu haibnate dependent oiba habani kanaguma mi amada tangjaraga adum leiba aduguma kangbu jingdubu ni client hadan harise. Now look here. The Khaljis and Tughlaq continue to use Bandagan and also raise people of humble birth who were often their clients to high political positions. Bandagan abdi mamang high record ngasai purchase slave mayam jingdubu ni ko makoi jingdubu Persian da Bandagan haidana kawi ko aduna Khaljis amadi Tughlaq makoi jingsisu Iltutmish ki adumaina hojiki Bandagan sijanabasisu adum continue tawramme haiba makoi gi matam dasu ko aduga ngasai gi Bandagan mayam jingsibu makoina humble birth amoina makoina rest tawrai aduna humble birth amoina rest tawragadi hojiki hairiba adugumba slave sibu ngasai gi ruler sida totally loyal oigani haidana ngasai gi makoi gi thajanabi ama leibanina Iltutmish dauna ngasai gi Khaljis amadi Tughlaq su they continue to use Bandagan and they were appointed as general and governor ngasai gi Bandagan mayam jingdubu makoina general amadi governor oina appoint tawrami however this is also introduced an element of political instability ngasai gi makoina hojiki Bandagan mayam jingdubu higher official rank ama mampidana tawba haibase makoi gi political instability ama lakpagi chance yamna wange hojiki sultanate matamsida slaves and clients were loyal to their masters and patrons but not their heirs ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯁ꯭ꯂꯦꯞꯁ ꯑꯃꯗꯤ ꯀ꯭ꯂꯥꯏꯟ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯅ ꯂꯣꯌꯦꯜ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯤꯁꯤ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯥꯁꯇꯔꯁꯤꯡꯗꯨ ꯉꯥꯛꯇꯅꯤ ꯑꯣꯟꯂꯤ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯥꯁꯇꯔꯁꯤꯡꯗꯨ ꯈꯛꯇꯅꯦꯕ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯥꯁꯇꯔꯁꯤꯡꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯃꯆꯥꯁꯤꯡꯗꯗꯤ ꯃꯈꯣꯏ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯂꯣꯌꯦꯜ ꯑꯣꯏꯗꯦꯕ So, new sultans had their own servants. Sultan anong-nowal lakpo mayamse masa-masagi servant amamam loinamag kaloinana laeba. As a result, the existence of a new monarch often saw conflict between the old and the new nobility. Aduna, ngasagi lairiba adugumba ruler mayamsina makoy-makoy oijaba tokay-tokay slave amamam loinamag kaloinana lakpanina anauba ruler ama anauba king ama appoint tarokpa matamda hanagi ariba amadi anauba oina lairiba aduguma nobility mayamsingigi marakta conflict jam toina thoe habani ko and the patronage of these humble people by the Delhi Sultans also shocked many elites, and the authors of Persian Tawari criticized the Delhi Sultans for appointing the low and baseborn to high offices. Aduna ngasagi lairiba adugumba hojiki hojiki leiramiba adugumba ngasagi new and old nobility mayamsingigi marakta yam toina conflict thoe aduna ngasagi Delhi Sultan mayamsingigi marakta leiriba adugumba ngasagi makoigi sidai laiba problem conflict mayamsingse ngasagi Persian Tawarik mayamsingsina Delhi Sultan mayamsingsina low and baseborn mayamsingsibu makoina high office oina makoina appoint tawraga thamba haibase sigisina ngasagi Delhi Sultan mayamsingsigi marakta makoigi manungda political instability lakpagi yamna achauba maram ama lei haidana ngasagi Tawarik Persian Tawarik mayamsingsina Delhi Sultan mayamsingsibu makoina criticize tawrameba karigidamakta for appointing the low and baseborn to high offices. Then next sidi kesu yamna important oidre ko, so skip this part and come to your next page. Like the earlier sultans, the Khalji and Tughlaq monarchs appointed military commanders as the governors of territories of varying sizes. Early sultan dawna ngasai Khalji amadi Tughlaq monarchs makoijo military commanders ingsibu governors of territories of varying sizes. Makoina control tawraga leiriba adugumba territory mayam ingsi governor mayam ama hapameba makoina kana bu military commander mayam ingsibu. And these lands were called Ikta. Hojiki makoida piriba adugumba land mayam ingsibu Ikta kawi, and hojiki land dubu hold tariba kambu jingdubuna Iktadar or Mukti. And the duty of the Mukti was to lead military campaigns and maintain law and order in their Iktas. Ngasai landholder mayamjing makoigi duty se kaino haiba matamda military campaign se makoina lead tawgadawani aduga ngasai makoina leiriba phangiba adugumba Iktas mayamjing sidasu law and order se maintain tawgadawani haibani ko. In exchange for their military services, the Muktis collected the revenues of their assignment as salary. Ngasai makoina tawruriba adugumba military services mayamjing sigi exchange oina Saigi Muktis mayamjingsina kari toronge haiba matamda revenue oina makoina laurammeba ko saigi salary oina makoina lawba matam sidaisida saigi makoina tawruriba thabakto adugi damakta makoina revenue oina collect tawrammeba kanadagi ruler jingdagi, and they also paid their soldiers from their revenues. Hojiki Muktis mayam jingduna makoida fangiba adugumba revenue mayam jingse masigi revenue sidagi masaigi mahaki soldier mayam jingsigi amuk mana salary pirammeba. And control over Muktis was most effective if their office was not inheritable and if they were assigned Iktas for a short period of time before being shifted. Sidaisida kari lake haiba matamda Muktis mayamjingsida makoina control tawraga leiba haibase masisi kaino haiba matamda inheritable oi ko, and if they were assigned a task for a short period of time before being shifted. Sidaisida mahang hainingisi kemta nate ko makoina hojiki control tawraga leirammiba adugumba Muktis mayamjing ko makoina control tawraga leiriba adugumba Iktas mayamjingse inheritable nate aduna karigumba makoina hojiki Iktas amada assign tawraga leiba haibase short period of time ne. And these harsh conditions of service were rigorously imposed during the reigns of Alauddin Khalji and Muhammad Tughlaq. Aduna hojiki makoina ngasai Muktis mayamjingsida makoigi Ikta mayam piraga hojiki makoina chalairiba masigi condition je sai Alauddin Khalji amadi Muhammad Tughlaq ki matamda yamna aikoigi oppose tawreba ꯒ꯭ꯌꯥꯟ ꯇꯥꯏꯀꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯤ ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯁꯔꯚꯤꯁꯀꯤ ꯀꯟꯗꯤꯁꯟꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯏꯝꯄꯣꯁ ꯇꯧꯔꯛꯑꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯇꯥꯔꯦ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯒꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯁꯤꯗꯩꯁꯤꯗ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯂꯥꯎꯗꯤꯟ ꯈꯜꯖꯤ ꯑꯃꯗꯤ ꯃꯨꯍꯝꯃꯗ ꯇꯨꯒꯂꯨꯛꯀꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯁꯤꯗꯁꯨ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯤ ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯕ ꯃꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯀꯟꯗꯤꯁꯟ ꯑꯃꯗꯤ ꯁꯤꯆꯨꯋꯦꯁꯟꯁꯦ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯄ ꯍꯥꯏꯇꯥꯔꯦ problematic ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯄ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯁꯤꯆꯨꯋꯦꯁꯟ ꯑꯃ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯑꯦꯕ so accountants were appointed by the state to check the amount of revenue collected by the muktis. Care was taken that the mukti collected only the taxes prescribed by the state and that he keep the required numbers of soldiers. ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯃꯇꯥꯡꯗ ꯀꯔꯤ ꯂꯥꯛꯀꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯨꯛꯇꯤꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯀꯂꯦꯛ ꯇꯧꯔꯤꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯔꯤꯚꯦꯅ꯭ꯌꯨ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤ ꯌꯦꯡꯁꯤꯟꯅꯕꯒꯤꯗꯃꯛꯇ ꯑꯦꯀꯥꯎꯟꯇꯦꯟ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯦꯄꯣꯏꯟ ꯇꯧꯔꯛꯑꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯤꯀꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯨꯛꯇꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯀꯂꯦꯛ ꯇꯧꯔꯤꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯇꯦꯛꯁꯦꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯁ꯭ꯇꯦꯠꯅ ꯄ꯭ꯔꯦꯁꯀ꯭ꯔꯥꯏꯕ ꯇꯧꯕ ꯇꯦꯛꯁꯇꯣ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯈꯣꯝꯃꯤꯕ꯭ꯔꯥ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯗꯔꯀꯥꯔ ꯇꯥꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯅꯝꯕꯔ ꯑꯣꯐ ꯁꯣꯜꯖꯔꯁꯤ ꯃꯈꯣꯏ ꯊꯝꯃꯤꯕ꯭ꯔꯥ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯆꯤꯡꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯦ ꯌꯦꯡꯁꯤꯟꯅꯅꯕ ꯑꯦꯀꯥꯎꯟꯇꯦꯟ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯑꯦꯄꯣꯏꯟ ꯇꯧꯔꯛꯑꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯤꯀꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯁꯤꯗꯩꯁꯤꯗ ꯀꯔꯤ ꯂꯥꯛꯀꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯨꯛꯇꯤꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯏꯛꯇꯥꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯀꯟꯇ꯭ꯔꯣꯜ ꯇꯧꯔꯒ ꯂꯩꯒꯗꯣꯏꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯨꯛꯇꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯇꯧꯒꯗꯕ ꯊꯕꯛꯁꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯃꯤꯂꯤꯇꯔꯤ ꯀꯦꯝꯄꯦꯟ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯂꯤꯗ ꯇꯧꯗꯣꯔꯤꯕꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯗ ꯄꯤꯔꯤꯕ ꯑꯦꯛꯇꯥꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯂꯣ ꯑꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯔꯗꯔ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯃꯦꯟꯇꯦꯟ ꯇꯧꯗꯣꯏꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯁꯤꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯊꯕꯛ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯦ ꯇꯧꯕꯒꯤꯗꯃꯛꯇ ꯔꯨꯂꯔ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯗ ꯔꯦꯚꯦꯅ꯭ꯌꯨ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯄꯤꯒꯗꯧꯔꯤꯕꯅꯤ ꯁꯦꯂꯔꯤ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯐꯪꯉꯤꯕ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯔꯦꯚꯦꯅ꯭ꯌꯨꯁꯤꯗꯒꯤ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯕ ꯃꯨꯛꯇꯤꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯁꯣꯜꯖꯔ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯄꯤꯖꯗꯧꯔꯤꯕꯅꯦꯕ ꯑꯦꯟ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯐꯪꯉꯤꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯏꯛꯇꯥꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯏꯟꯍꯦꯔꯤꯇꯦꯕꯜ ꯅꯠꯇꯦ ꯃꯥꯗꯤ ꯐꯣꯔ ꯗ ꯇꯥꯏꯝ ꯕꯤꯡꯅꯤ ꯁꯣꯔꯠ ꯄꯦꯔꯤꯌꯗ ꯑꯣꯐ ꯇꯥꯏꯝꯅꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯃꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯀꯟꯗꯤꯁꯟꯁꯤꯁꯨ ꯑꯂꯥꯎꯗꯤꯟ ꯈꯜꯖꯤ ꯑꯃꯗꯤ ꯃꯨꯍꯝꯃꯗ ꯇꯨꯒꯂꯨꯛꯀꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯗꯁꯨ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯐꯣꯂꯣ ꯇꯧꯍꯜꯂꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯨꯛꯇꯤꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯔꯦꯚꯦꯅ꯭ꯌꯨ ꯀꯂꯦꯛ ꯇꯧꯔꯤꯕꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯕꯨ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯌꯦꯡꯁꯤꯟꯅꯕꯒꯤꯗꯃꯛꯇ ꯑꯦꯀꯥꯎꯟꯇꯦꯟ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯑꯦꯄꯣꯏꯟ ꯇꯧꯔꯝꯃꯦꯕ ꯑꯦꯟ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯨꯛꯇꯤꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯀꯂꯦꯛ ꯇꯧꯔꯤꯕ ꯇꯦꯛꯁꯁꯤ ꯁ꯭ꯇꯦꯠꯅ ꯄ꯭ꯔꯦꯁꯀ꯭ꯔꯥꯏꯕ ꯇꯧꯔꯤꯕ ꯇꯦꯛꯁꯇꯨ ꯅꯠꯇꯕ ꯑꯇꯣꯞꯄ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯑꯦꯛꯁꯇ꯭ꯔꯥ ꯇꯦꯛꯁ ꯂꯧꯕ꯭ꯔꯥ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯅ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯌꯦꯡꯁꯤꯟꯅꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯒꯤꯗꯤ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯅꯝꯕꯔ ꯑꯣꯐ ꯁꯣꯜꯖꯔꯁ ꯃꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯊꯝꯃꯤꯕ ꯅꯝꯕꯔ ꯑꯣꯐ ꯁꯣꯜꯖꯔꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯁꯨ ꯔꯤꯀ꯭ꯋꯥꯔ ꯑꯣꯏꯕ ꯅꯝꯕꯔ ꯑꯣꯐ ꯁꯣꯜꯖꯔꯗꯨꯗꯒꯤ ꯍꯦꯟꯅ ꯂꯧꯕ꯭ꯔꯥ ꯅꯠꯇ꯭ꯔꯒ ꯃꯁꯤꯡ ꯋꯥꯠꯄ꯭ꯔꯥ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯆꯤꯡꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕꯁꯤꯡꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯌꯦꯡꯁꯤꯟꯅꯕꯒꯤꯗꯃꯛꯇ ꯑꯦꯀꯥꯎꯟꯇꯦꯟ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯑꯦꯄꯣꯏꯟ ꯇꯧꯔꯝꯃꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯤꯀꯣ then next as the Delhi Sultans brought the hinterland of the cities under their control, they forced the landed chieftains, the Samantas, aristocrats, and rich landlords to accept their authority. Hujiki Delhi Sultan mayamsingchina makoina hinterland mayamsingchibu makoina control sum tarakpagi chang wangkalakpagi matungina makoina ngasaigi landed chieftain mayamsingchibu saigi landed chieftain habdi Samanta aristocrats mayamsingse adudagidi amuk rich landlords mayamsingse makoigi authority mayamsingse accept taunanaba makoina amuk hairameba aduga amuk under Alauddin Khilji the state brought the assessment and collection of land revenue under its own control. Alauddin Khilji gi matamdadi kari taronge haba matamda collection of revenue se makoi state ki control makhada thamakre habani ko aduna the rights of the local chieftain to levy tax were cancelled and they were also forced to pay tax aduna ngasai gi local chieftain oina makoida phangamba adugumba right mayam jing masi jing se cancel tawthokre aduga makhoi su amuk tax thihalleba kara kanagi matamda Alauddin Khilji gi matamda aduna sigi matek se important oi ko ai amuka halake Alauddin Khilji gi matamdadi kari torake haba matamda control mayam jingse makoi gi ngasai gi center oina saigi collection of land revenue mayam jingse Alauddin Khilji gi ngasai gi mahaki king gi center sina oina control loina mak tawkreba mi atopada sinadre habani ko aduga amu karino sinadri se assessment and collection of land revenue siguma mayam jingse makoi masamang oina control tawre mi atopada sinadreba aduga amuk local chieftain mayam jingda phangamiba right mayam jingse loina makakraga makoi su tax thina boina hairameba. Now the Sultan's administrators measured the land and kept careful account aduna ngasai gi sultan gi de lairiba adugumba administrator mayam jingsina land mayam jingse fazana onba adagidi mo account fazana thame and some of the old chieftains and landlords of the sultanate as revenue collectors and assessors aduga amuk old chieftain adudagidi landlords kangbu khara amana amuk ngasai gi sultanate jingsiki makoi revenue collectors amadi assessor oina thamame habani ko ꯁꯤꯗꯩꯁꯤꯗ ꯇꯦꯛꯁ ꯃꯈꯜ ꯑꯍꯨꯝ ꯊꯣꯛꯅ ꯂꯥꯛꯈ꯭ꯔꯦ ꯁꯤꯃꯁꯨ ꯏꯝꯄꯣꯔꯇꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯦꯀꯣ ꯇꯦꯛꯁ ꯃꯈꯜ ꯑꯍꯨꯝꯁꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ on cultivation called kharas and amounting to about 50% of the pigeons produced kharas ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯕ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯕ ꯃꯁꯤꯒꯤ cultivationꯁꯤꯗ ꯇꯦꯛꯁꯅꯤꯀꯣ ꯂꯥꯛꯀꯗꯣꯏꯁꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯇꯦꯛꯁꯁꯤꯅ ꯀꯌꯥꯅꯣ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ 50% of the pigeons produced pigeons ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯗꯨꯅ produce ꯇꯧꯔꯤꯕꯗꯨꯒꯤ 50% collectionꯅꯤ ꯇꯦꯛꯁꯁꯤꯗ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯒꯤꯗꯤ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯅꯦꯛꯁꯇꯅ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ on cattleꯗ and last ꯇꯦꯛꯁꯁꯤꯅ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ on houses ꯌꯨꯝꯗ ꯀꯦꯇꯜꯗ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯒꯤꯗꯤ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯈꯔ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯕ cultivation ꯀꯣ ꯁꯤꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯃꯈꯜꯒꯤ ꯇꯦꯛꯁ ꯈꯔ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯈꯣꯝꯒꯠꯂꯛꯑꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯤ ꯀꯅꯥꯒꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯂꯥꯎꯗꯤꯟ ꯈꯜꯖꯤꯒꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ and it is important to remember that large part of the subcontinent remain outside the control of the Delhi Sultans Delhi Sultanꯒꯤ controlsꯤꯡꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯋꯥꯡꯃꯗ ꯖꯒꯥ ꯀꯌꯥ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯂꯩꯔꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯤꯀꯣ and it was difficult to control distant provinces like Bengal from Delhi and soon after annexing southern India the entire region became independent Delhi-dagina Bengal asomda control tauba haibase aduki matik lurameba adubu southern India se makoina annex hek tawrappadagidi hojiki hairiba region se became independent oigreba pura totally independent oina leigre habani even in the Gangetic Plain there were forested areas the Sultanate forces could not penetrate hojiki leiriba South asomda chakraba matamda Bengal asomgi side totally independent oina leihore aduga amu Gangetic Plain gi swai jaga dasu forested area mayam ama lei ngai Sultan mayam jingsina changsanba ngamdaba and local chieftains established their rule in their regions aduna ngai local chieftains mayam jingsina hojiki makoy particular region sida masa masai oijaba rule kaya ama semaga leirame habani ko Sometimes rulers like Alauddin Khaljis and Muhammad Tughlaq could force their control in these areas but only for a short duration. Karigama matamda Alauddin Khalji amadi Muhammad Tughlaq na hojiki hariba jaga mayam jinsibo makoina control tawbadi ngami adubu duration yam telame yam kuina control taraga leiba ngamde haibani ko. And chieftain and their fortification sisu kaisu yam important oidre aduna I skip tawrage nakoina sana pazaro Now look here the Mongol under Genghis Khan invaded Transylvania in northeast Iran in 1219 and the Delhi Sultanate faced their onslaught soon after Genghis Khan hariba ngasai ruler sigi mahaksi Mongol ruler ni ko aduna ngasai mahaksi Mongol kangbuni aduna ngasai Mongol oriba Genghis Khan jina northeast Iran 1219 asomda Transylvania je mahakna control tawgre aduna mahakna hojiki hariba jaga je control hek taroppadagi di kaidoge haba matamda Delhi Sultan mayam je makoida problem lakpa horame habani ko Mongol attacks on the Delhi Sultanate increased during the reign of Alauddin Khalji and in the early years of Muhammad Tughlaq rules Mongols na hojiki Delhi Sultanate asomda attack taropagi chang se Alauddin Khalji gi matamda aduki matik laami ko aduga amuk ngasai Muhammad Tughlaq ki mahaki early rules mahaki matam mahaki reign hogolakpadasu laame habani ko and this forced the two rulers to mobilize a large standing army in Delhi which posed a huge administrative challenge aduna ngasai Mongol gi threat mayam ama lakpasina hojiki ruler ani sina Delhi da standing army kaya ama makoina mobilize tawraka thambase yam chawna maram habadi makoina darkar tarame haba standing army mayam ama makoina arrange tawraka thamba haibase yamna important oirame ba in order to face a threat from Mongol invasions now let us see how the two sultans deal with this ngasai Mongol gi threat mayam ama lakpasida hojiki Muhammad Tughlaq amadi Alauddin Khalji makoina kamdongna kari arrangement kari preparation lokhat ke habana chingma mayam do hojik next page ta la asiko sida leiriba mayam jingsi Alauddin Khalji amadi Muhammad Tughlaq ani sigi marakta leiriba adugumba difference between duni ko Now look here Alauddin Khalji raised a large standing army Alauddin Khalji na standing army kaya ama mahakna kadaida Delhi was attacked twice Delhi je anirak attack tawrakre ko Mongol na aduna mahakna standing army kaya ama mahakna manage tawraga thamame habani ko. And then what happened in Muhammad Tughlaq? Like Alauddin Khalji, Muhammad Tughlaq also raised a large standing army to prevent from Mongol invasions. The Sultanate was attacked in the early years of Muhammad Tughlaq regime. Muhammad Tughlaq ki mahaki matam hawalakpada laami ko adubu Mongol army jingse makoina maithiba pirameba. Aduna mahakse confidence khara wangkalae mahakse kanano hojiki Muhammad Tughlaq hariba miyoi siko and mahakna Transoxiana da attack tawunaba mahakna plan tawrame habani. Aduna he therefore raised a large standing army like Alauddin Khalji. Alauddin Khalji dauna Muhammad Tughlaq su standing army kaya ama mahakna arrange tawrame habani ko. Then next, Alauddin constructed a new garrison town named Siri for his soldiers. Mahaki soldier mayang gidamakta Alauddin na mahaki garrison town na semami ko Siri kauba ama. But Muhammad Tughlaq na mukari tarongge haba matamda Delhi city je mahakna kedauge haba matamda empty tarameba. City da lairiba resident mayam je mahakna loinamak tanthoame aduga soldier mayang gi garrison town semame. Aduna Masagi lairiba aduna mahakna the residents of the old city were sent to the new capital of Dawlatabad in the south. Aduna Masagi Delhi da lairiba adugumba resident mayam ji makoina loinamak tanthoame aduga soldier mayam gi garrison town semgre aduga amuk old city da lairiba adugum miyoi mayam jingsha mahakna Dawlatabad mahaki south ke somda laiba Dawlatabad te loinamak tharameba Muhammad Tughlaq nadi. And soldier mayam jing, the soldier had to be fed. Soldier mayam jingse pija pitak taba yade ko. So Alauddin Khalji collect a tax from land between the Ganga and Yamuna. Tax was fixed at 50%. 50% yield. Aduna Alauddin Khalji na Ganga and Yamuna masigi marakta laiba land mayam jingsidagi mahakna 50% of peasants yield se mahakna collect torame habani ko. Now, what happened in Muhammad Tughlaq? To meet the expenses of maintaining such a large number of soldiers, the Sultan levied additional tax. Muhammad Tughlaq nadi additional tax mahakna levied tawrame habani ko. Aduna hojiki peasants mayam jingsida additional tax mahakna levied tawrakpasina peasants mayam jingsida problem mayam am thole masisina kari lake haba matamda famine thoksale area sida. Aduna famine thoklabanina chaba thakpa fangdabagi problem mayam ama laabanina ngasai gi soldier mayam jingsida aduki matik problem laeba. Aduna sigisina mahaki yamna achauba mahaki planning da aswoiba amane ba hojiki hariba masigi additional tax haibase Muhammad Tughlaq ki planning da mahaki administration da failure ne basis. And what happened after this? The soldier had to be paid. Soldier mayam jingsi makoi paid makoi ki salary pi dabya de. Aduna Alauddin Khalji ki matam dadi kari tarongge haba matam da iktas ki mahutta salary oina pirameba Alauddin Khalji ki mahuttadi. Aduga amuk Muhammad Tughlaq ki matamdana kari tarongge haba matamda mahaksu case oina di pirame like Khalji. Adubu mahakna hojiki piriba adugumba magi case kaino haba matamda token currency oina pirame. Adubu mahakna token currency oina pirakpasina 14th century da laiba adugumba miyoi mayam jing makoina hojiki coin je makoi thajadeba. Aduna makoi jingsidi yamna smart oirakpagi matungina gold and silver coins si mayam jingse makoina thamjalaeba. Aduga amuk hojiki hairiba madugi token currency token currency jibu makoina chip currency haidana haiko aduna ngasai gi laiba miyoi mayam jingsina makoi gi singbagi chang ji hingalakpanina token currency ji makoina thajaramdeba aduna makoina expensive oiriba gold and silver coin ji makoina thamjallaga yamna cheap oiba adugumba metals mayam jing koi gi gold natraga silver nattaba adugumba cheap metals mayam jingsina saba adugi ngasai gi currency token currency ji sigi soina circulate taunareba aduna ngasai gi cheap metals na sarakpanina mahaki value je laishalaktreba aduna hojiki hairiba masigi token currency system sisu token currency system of Muhammad Tughlaq is also a failure one. Now last difference between about these two different ruler. Alauddin administrative measures were quite successful and chronicled praised his reign for its cheap prices and efficient supplies of goods in the markets. He successfully withstood the threat of Mongol invasions. Alauddin Khilji's administration jidi aduki matik successful oire haidana chroniclers mayam amana hairamiko kari gi damakta success oi haidana haribano haiba matamda mahaki cheap price adudagidi amok efficient supply of goods in the markets aduna sigumba mahaki administration je aduki matik success oibanina mahakna successfully withstood the threat of Mongol invasions je mahakna yam success oina face tawba ngamki haibani ko but unlike Alauddin Khilji's the Muhammad Tughlaq administrative measures were a failure duna chronicler mayam jingsina hujiki hairiba Muhammad Tughlaqi administrative measures idi totally failure haidana hairami ko karigidamakta failure oinu haiba matamda mahakna Kashmir campaign chatnanaba sinba haibase totally disaster oikre and mahakna amuk Transoceania jibu invade taunanaba mahakna plan tawba haibase masisu amuk unnecessary ni haibani and mahakna amuk ngasai gi lairiba aduga mahaki miyoi mayam jing jibu amuk shifting of people to Daulatabad was presented sisu amuk unnecessary oiba administration ni ko and the raising of taxes and famine in the Ganga Yamuna belt sisu amuk lead to widespread rebellion rulers igi for the fight tawgadaba mayam jing dubu famine thobanina mahaki against oina rebellion thogalapagi problem ama mahakna thohangre habani ko and after that the token currency impostor paibase masi totally failure neba so this is the difference between the administrative measures of Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq. Now come to your next page. In the list of Muhammad Tughlaq failures, we sometimes forget that for the first time in the history of the Sultanate, a Delhi Sultan planned a campaign to capture Mongol territory. Saigi mahaki lairiba adugma failure mayamgi list sida aikoina karingoba matamda kauthokpiba amasu yawe karino akoina kauthui je haba matamda first time in the history of Sultanate sida Mongol gi territory sida military campaign chathanaba plan tawramba miyoi sa Muhammad Tughlaq khaktani habne unlike Alauddin defensive measures Muhammad Tughlaq measures were conceived as a part of military offensive against the Mongols ngasai Alauddin Khilji na defensive measures when mahakna follow tawraga laibase masigi against the Muhammad Tughlaq nadi kari plan tawrongge haiba matamda Mongols mayam jingsigi against the military campaign chathanaba plan tawramba adugumba amatangairaba haibadi yadre ihan hanba adugumba sultan se Muhammad Tughlaq ni haibani sida haris. So student, I hope you all understood what we have learned so far.